I guarantee if I were using some sort of performance-enhancing drug, I could throw this ball way over all of those houses. Now, if you're like me and you love watching sports, you probably think to yourself, why don't these athletes take performance-enhancing drugs? Is it simply because they don't want to because of the health risks, or is it because they're not allowed to? So I did some research on the topic, and I came to the conclusion that yes, these athletes should be using these performance-enhancing drugs. So I'm here to tell you all today why these athletes should be allowed to. I'm going to discuss the benefits of performance-enhancing drugs, the people who say we shouldn't allow athletes to use them and why, and lastly, I will be explaining my call to action as to why professional organizations should allow their athletes to use performance-enhancing drugs and how to do so. So firstly, the main reason why athletes should use performance-enhancing drugs is to see how much better they can perform while using them. They could be faster, stronger, that much quicker. So, for example, HGH, human growth hormone, is a very popular PED that is used by many MLB players, NFL players, cyclists, and all other ranges of competition. Now, human growth hormone, described by Reynolds from Raging Hormones in New York Times, she says that those who take HGH, including many doctors, say it can restore sagging physiques, flagging endurance, and wilting libidos, as well as cure depression and sharpen mental acuity. So she's saying that not only is it good for the physical aspect of the athlete, but the mental aspect as well. So there's really not much downside to the drug. Now the second PED I will be addressing are anabolic steroids. Anabolic steroids are a synthetic variation of the naturally produced chemical in the male body called testosterone. In an NPR article titled Raging Hormones by Krishnadev Kalamur, she says, in an interview with Oprah Winfrey, Lance Armstrong, said he was never afraid of getting caught and attributed his actions to a ruthless desire to win. So Lance Armstrong is a very well-known cyclist who won the Tour de France 7 years in a row, and he was caught using anabolic steroids. And the third PED I will be addressing is EPO, or erythropoietin. Erythropoietin was used by Asbel Kiprop, who was a 28-year-old Kenyan in the 2009 Olympics, and he tested positive, and he attributed much of his success to using the drug EPO. Now that we've discussed some of the three main PEDs in the sports world, now we can talk about who and why people say they should be banned. So, firstly, in a Science Direct article called The Problem of Doping in Sports, it says, doping in sports is cheating and unfair. Doping harms the athletes, doping harms even non-doping athletes, doping harms society. Bans must be enforceable and therefore require complex infrastructures for fair and just implementation. Doping represents a perversion of sports, and doping is unnatural and dehumanizing. I find this to be absolutely absurd, especially the part where she says it's unnatural, because EPO is naturally produced in the kidneys. So in taking EPO, you're just speeding that up. Anabolic steroids are just a synthetic variation of what's naturally produced in the body, testosterone. And then HGH is something that is great for our bodies, but once we end puberty, it depletes by 1% to 2% every year. So why not replenish that and get more HGH to the body so we could stay stronger and healthier in all ways, physically and mentally. Next, in a quote from the Mayo Clinic, they say, many athletes take anabolic steroids at doses that are much higher than those prescribed for medical reasons. Anabolic steroids have serious side effects. Now, I'm not going to stand here and say that steroids and all of their uses are great. Of course, overusing them can have negative side effects, but that's with anything in life. Over-exercise is not good for you. Overeating is not good for you, yet we know food is healthy for the body. So to say that athletes using steroids too often is the problem, well, okay, that's fine, but you can't blame the steroid themselves when we know that it's helping the athlete. And then lastly, Rob Manfred is like the president of baseball operations, and baseball is my favorite sport. However, I know baseball is a dying sport, so I think that implementing the use of steroids and other PEDs in baseball would be better for the culture. However, an NP article, or a New York Times article called "Welcome Commissioner, Here's a New Doping Problem," says Manfred had gone all in the fight against doping, especially after the 2007 Mitchell report exposed the pervasiveness of drug use in baseball. And he said Manfred's continuing efforts to fight doping had helped change the culture in baseball for the better. I could not disagree with this more, because doping simply allows athletes to hit the ball farther, which everyone wants to see anyways. So why take that away? Now that I've discussed the people and their reasons to be against doping, I will come to a solution. And the solution is simple. All professional sports organizations and committees should allow doping and allow people to use PEDs. So the Olympic Committee has a 41-page document saying why athletes cannot use these doping drugs and the penalties they will receive from this. And to be completely honest, I say to hell with that, and we should get rid of it altogether. Now, Usain Bolt is a well-known athlete that all of us know is an outstanding runner, and in 2009, he reached a top speed of 27.8 miles per hour in his amazing 9.58 second 100-meter dash. That's unheard of. But imagine an athlete like him running at 30 miles an hour, or doing something even faster than 9.58 seconds in a 100-meter dash. That would be absolutely incredible to see. Now, another athlete, Lance Armstrong, as mentioned earlier, says in an NPR article, it says, Armstrong said that at no time did he feel his actions were wrong, but acknowledged that he would be spending the rest of his life apologizing to people, including those whom he sued for alleging, correctly as it turned out, that he was cheating on the tour. Meaning, Armstrong knew what he was doing could get him in trouble. However, he knew that what he was doing was the only way he could win and keep his body in peak performance for 7 years straight. Simply, he would continue to do so, and he knew others were doing it anyways. So he felt he did nothing wrong. And then, lastly, Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds is a name that everyone in the baseball community knows. He hit 762 home runs. Unfortunately, he will never be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he's gotten in many court cases over his doping allegations. To me, the most magical thing in sports is that little kid who goes to the park or sees their favorite athlete come up to bat and hits a huge home run to win the game, or do something just spectacular and drop the jaws of little kids. However, if Barry Bonds did not take those steroids, he definitely would not have hit as many home runs as he did. So in conclusion, today I've told you why athletes should be allowed to dope and use PEDs, because it helps them in all ways, physical and mental. And I've proven that the naysayers and the people who do not support doping are just simply wrong. And lastly, I've made a call to action as to why sports organizations and committees should allow the athletes to dope in general. Thank you.